Hi, welcome back to the Spirit's Path. This is Dee, and today's tarot card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot deck is the Knight of Vessels and the Eel. And when I was thinking about this card today, I was like, okay, here I am frustrated. Here you are frustrated. You got all this good things going on, and yesterday was just a frustrating day. You've got your last arrow notched, in that 5 of arrows and frustration. And you just said, you sat down, you sit next to a stream, and the Knight of Vessels pulls up. And he puts his arm around you and says, you know what? This too shall pass. Don't worry about it. And the eel is symbolic of a wise protector. And the way I like to explain the court cards is the knight is a fighter and a tactician. They're also, they like to begin that quest. So, I like to think of the, the Merlin and the King Arthur knights. They're always out there, on a quest, looking for the cup, right? Looking for the Holy Grail. And, Vessels is all about water and emotions and psychic energy, okay? And, he kind of, comes up out of the water and he says, hey, this too shall pass. Don't worry about it. It's just one day out of 6 or 7. You've been working very hard, since you came out of the world tree, gaining all this, going back to your skill set, being responsible, going through some inner healing. And, you're attracting great things. And you to be honest with you kind of attracted me. This is what the eel is saying. And at the same time, you're looking at that going, yeah, why should I let one day out of a week, really bother me? Okay. So the eel is all about purity and wisdom, maturity, and likes to express those deep feelings. Okay. So, when you think about the message that he has for you, it's going to be that pure wisdom that comes through. And kind of like the kingly wisdom, but yet not of a kingly variety, if that makes sense. It's more of that mature aspect of, what? Yes, I wear my heart on my sleeve, but at the same time, I'm going to do things responsibly, right? So if this is a person, or if this is you, that we're talking about, it's somebody that's going to be, a charmer. Very cultured, sensitive, has an imagination. But they also know that dream world. So you can talk to the eel about the dreams that you're having, right? If you remember them in the morning. I like to, write them out and journal them when they're important. And he's also a very seductive, smooth talker. So, if this is somebody in your life, you need to really listen to what they have to say, right? And it's going to be, the message is going to be very, very emotional, highly emotional, right? He's going to get, he's going to be talking to you in such a way that, he's going to raise that vibration up. He wants you to get excited about what's going on. He wants you to charm you on that next step of your quest. If this is an aspect, okay, it's finding agreement, with what's going on, okay? Finding agreement with, something like, going to a concert, right? Or finding an agreement, to have harmony with another person or something like that. Saying, hey, let's go to such and such concert tonight, in downtown, wherever. And you're like, I really don't want to go. And he's like, come on. We'll have a good time. We'll stop by, Joe Blow's, place, and we'll have a couple drinks, and then we'll get a couple coney dogs, and we'll do this, we'll do that. And you find yourself in agreement, with going on a trip or, whatever. And if this is an event, it's going to be one that's a welcoming one. Okay. And again, with the knights, they also like to offer that quest. So what's this quest that's coming up for you? Okay, I was thinking about that a little bit today. Here we've worked on our inner healing and our inner stability, our inner strength. We've kind of gotten back to our skill set, and we are being responsible. We are being mature in the way everything's going on, but at the same time, we want to start having fun. Okay, the 2 of Vessels and attraction, okay, is bringing an opportunity back into your life. Okay, one, it's going to be fun, because that's what the 5 of Vessels in dancing, in ecstasy is all about, and dancing, right? So there's going to be a quest of, continuing on with that higher vibration, continuing on with that joy and bliss and love energy, and not the anger and the frustration energy that's out there. So, the quest could be working on the emotional attitude within your head, right? And asking yourself, okay, ultimately you have control of how you want to be when you wake up in the morning, right? You want to make up mad, and carry that through you all day, that's a low vibration. But if you wake up mad and you say, you know what, I choose joy instead, then you don't have to worry about it. You go through the rest of your day, and maybe it's not until you get to that first cup of coffee where you're just like, you know what, this is going to be a great day. I can feel it. I can feel it coming on, because you've made the choice mentally, to move forward. So, that quest that I feel is coming up is working on some mental activity, all right, to keep the emotional energy up and alive and vibrating at a high level, okay? So, and that's one of the questions that he, this knight is asking you, why he's got his, sitting there next to you, by the river, it's like, hey, look, lift up that chin, puff out that chest a little bit. You've done some great things, right? There's nothing to be, frustrated about. Just because there's one little stumbling block, don't let it hurt you. Let it help you to move forward, right? So he's trying to raise that vibration up in you to make you look at things from a different perspective, right? So, and then he asks you, where are your emotions running high? And you think about it, and you're like, yeah, where are my emotions? I really haven't had high emotions since, a couple days ago when I was had the 2 of vessels and a 5 of vessels down there. I was doing some inner healing work, and I feel like I've come along a long way. And the emotions were high, but then that one day of frustration just kind of brought me back down. He's like, you recognize that, you're aware of that, okay? So what are you going to do different? And you're like, yeah, why should I let the one day ruin everything? I'm getting back to where, I'm going back to that skill set. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to work on that healing, with what I need to do. And then the other question he asks, the Knight of Vessels and the Eel is, where do you need to express stuff sensitively? Did somebody come in and put that frustration on you? Come at you so fast that you couldn't think about it, so you're shooting off the arrows? When you could have just said, wait a minute, stop. I don't accept that, That is not the energy I'm looking for. The energy I'm looking for is up here. And you're coming at me with this low vibe stuff. No, I don't want that in my life. Stop, okay? And when you do that, when you express those needs to others sensitively, and, and just say, I really didn't appreciate the way you came at me last night at dinner. Or, hey, that comment that you made to me, I didn't agree with it. You say, I appreciate we don't talk about those things anymore. And when you can have those conversations, those hard conversations, and we're all afraid to have them, we can have those conversations with others. It really, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to strengthen a relationship, or that person, is just going to say, I don't want to hang out with that person anymore, which is good, because you don't need to hang out with them either. And you can move on, and guess what? You'll be attracting those people that are like-minded in your life to help you out. To help you out on this quest, to help you out on your spiritual path, because there's always somebody that's going to be there. Either you're going to be helping somebody, or they're going to be helping you. And that's just, that's the way things work, right? You have knowledge to pass on. They have knowledge to pass on to you, to help you out, to help you grow, to help you move forward. And this eel is giving you that mentoring aspect of, the Knight of Vessels. Okay? So, that's the message for today out of the Wildwood Tarot deck, the Knight of Vessels and the Eel. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel. Check out my stand store down below and give me a thumbs up. And this is D for a Spirit's Path. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. God bless. And stay safe, everybody.